The dawn stretched gently over the western frontier, its golden light touching the rolling grasslands and the lonely log cabin that stood in their midst. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, casting long shadows across the untamed land. Beyond the cabin lay a small patch of green, fenced by rough wooden rails, a garden that shimmered faintly with dew, each droplet catching the morning light like tiny jewels. Around it, the world was wide and wild, ruled by wind, sun, and silence. The horizon stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by distant ridges and the occasional stand of cottonwood trees marking where water ran. Here lived Hannah Whitfield, a 12-year-old girl whose small hands bore the calluses of hard work. Her hair was a tangle of sunlit brown that fell past her shoulders, wild as the prairie grass itself. Her face was dusted with freckles that darkened in summer, and her eyes were deep and steady like the soil she loved, brown with flecks of green, eyes that had learned to read the sky for weather and the earth for signs of growth. Her family had come west the year before, leaving behind the noise and crowding of eastern towns for the promise of open land, for the dream of building something entirely their own. Her father, Samuel Whitfield, had built their cabin with his own hands, cutting pine from the forest ridge that rose to the north. Each log had been carefully stripped, notched, and fitted. The cabin was small but sturdy, with a stone fireplace that her father had mortared himself using river rocks he'd gathered over weeks. Her mother, Eleanor, had tended this little garden with devoted care, planting seeds she had carefully wrapped in cloth and carried from their old home in Pennsylvania: corn, beans, squash, and a few precious herbs she swore could heal any heartache or wound. There was mint for digestion, sage for fevers, thyme for courage, and lavender for peaceful sleep. It was her mother's pride, a living piece of beauty amid the wilderness, a reminder that civilization could take root even here. For a time, life was good. The morning smelled of fresh earth and bread baking over the hearth, mixing with the scent of pine smoke and wildflowers. The garden flourished under her mother's patient care, each plant responding to her gentle hands and soft songs. The land, though rough and wild, seemed to welcome them. Deer grazed at dawn near the tree line. Hawks circled overhead. At night, the family would sit together by firelight, her father whittling, her mother mending, Hannah reading aloud from the few books they'd brought, stories of far off places that seemed less wondrous than the vast frontier they now called home. But the frontier is never gentle for long. Those who venture into wild places learn quickly that nature gives and takes according to its own laws, indifferent to human hopes. The summer heat came early that year, fierce and unyielding. By late June, the sun blazed down with an intensity that seemed to drain the color from the sky, turning it a bleached, dusty white. The rain stopped entirely. Week after week passed without a single cloud. The ground hardened and cracked, the fissures spreading like broken glass across the fields. The creek that ran through the valley began to shrink, its cheerful babble fading to a thin trickle. The grass turned yellow, then brown, then crumbled to dust underfoot. Then came illness, the kind that swept through isolated frontier settlements without mercy, carried on the wind or in the water, no one could say. It started in a cabin 5 miles south, then spread to the family beyond the ridge. Within weeks, it reached the Whitfield home. Hannah's mother fell sick, her strength fading with each passing day. The fever came in waves, leaving her weak and pale, her vibrant energy replaced by exhaustion. She could no longer tend her beloved garden, could barely rise from bed. Her father, desperate to save their home and find help for his wife, made the difficult decision to leave. He joined a wagon train bound further west, where he'd heard tell of a settlement with a proper doctor and where land was said to be more forgiving. He promised to return within the month, bringing medicine and supplies. He kissed his wife's fevered brow, embraced Hannah tightly, and whispered to her that she was stronger than she knew. Then he climbed onto the wagon seat, snapped the reins, and disappeared into the shimmering heat of the western horizon. Days turned into weeks. The fever worsened, though Eleanor Whitfield fought it with all the strength she had left. The garden began to wither under the relentless sun, its leaves drooping, its soil turning to powder. Hannah, left alone to care for both her mother and the land, found herself fighting two battles simultaneously, one against the sickness that kept her mother bedridden and delirious, and another against the dry earth that threatened to die beneath her feet. She was only a child, small for her age and slender as a willow switch, yet she understood with a clarity beyond her years what was at stake. The garden was not just food for their table, it was memory, continuity, identity, it was home, it was life itself. If the garden died, something essential would be lost, something her mother had carried across hundreds of miles and nurtured with love. Hannah would not let that happen. Each morning before the sun rose, while the air was still cool and grey, she filled a tin pail at the creek that wound through the valley bottom, nearly a half mile from the cabin. The water was cold, biting against her fingers, making them ache. The pail was heavy, pulling at her thin shoulders, but she carried it carefully, step by careful step, up the rocky hill, trying not to spill a single precious drop. She poured it slowly over each plant, distributing it as evenly as she could, whispering softly as though her mother might hear her from the cabin window, as though the plants themselves understood her promises that she would not abandon them. Then she would make the journey again, and again, and again. Sometimes she made the trip 10 times in a morning, her legs trembling with exhaustion, her hands blistered from the pail's wire handle. The days grew hotter, her arms weaker, her heart lonelier. Dust rose with each step she took, coating her dress and skin. The corn leaves curled inward, trying to conserve what little moisture they held. The bean vines drooped despite her efforts, yet she worked on, driven by love and duty, clearing weeds that somehow still found a way to grow, turning soil that had become hard as stone, shading young sprouts with bits of cloth torn from old dresses, praying silently for rain that never came. But the small patch of green gave her courage. It was something alive, something still growing when everything else seemed frozen in a state of slow dying. As long as the garden lived, hope lived. At night, exhausted beyond measure, she sat by the window of the cabin, watching the stars flicker above the quiet valley. They seemed impossibly bright out here, away from any town, scattered across the darkness in such abundance that the sky looked dusted with silver. Coyotes called from the ridge, their voices lonely and wild. The wind creaked the wooden fence around her garden, a rhythmic sound that had become familiar. She missed her father's steady voice, his calloused hand on her shoulder. She missed her mother's laughter, which had once filled the cabin like music. She missed the warmth of company, of conversation, of not being alone with such heavy responsibility. Days passed, each one bleeding into the next in an endless cycle of heat and toil. The fever grew worse. Inside the cabin, her mother's breath came shallow and labored. Outside, the air was heavy with dust that turned the sunsets blood red. One morning in late July, when Hannah went to water the garden, she found several bean vines completely dry and brittle, their leaves crumbled to ash, their roots pulled easily from the ground. Her chest tightened, a sob caught in her throat. She knelt beside them, the tin pail slipping from her hands, water spilling uselessly into the dust. Tears ran down her cheeks, cutting clean tracks through the grime, darkening the dust where they fell. She felt the weight of the world pressing down on her small shoulders, the responsibility, the fear, the exhaustion. She had tried so hard, worked until her hands bled and her back ached, and still it wasn't enough. The garden was dying, her mother was dying. She was failing at everything that mattered. But even through her tears, squinting against the bright morning sun, she saw it. A single green sprout pushing through the dry soil near the fence. Small but defiant, it was a squash seedling, one she hadn't even known was there. It must have sprouted from a seed that fell last season. Against all odds, without any help from her, it had found the strength to break through the hard ground and reach for the light. It was enough. It was a sign. That night, kneeling beside her sleeping mother, Hannah prayed not for rain but for strength. Strength to endure whatever came, to keep her mother's garden alive even when her hope faltered, to be worthy of the faith her father had placed in her. The next day dawned dark and strange. The oppressive heat that had gripped the valley for weeks seemed to hesitate, held in check by something new. The air felt different, heavy, charged, expectant. The sky was swollen with dark clouds rolling in from the west, their bellies purple and grey. A low rumble echoed across the valley, so deep Hannah felt it in her chest. The birds fell silent, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of moisture, a smell Hannah had almost forgotten. Then the heavens broke. Rain poured down in silver sheets, drenching the parched land, the weathered cabin, the desperate fields. Thunder rolled through the hills like drums, and lightning flashed like fire across the darkened sky, illuminating everything in stark, brilliant moments. Hannah ran outside, barefoot and wild, her face lifted to the storm. She didn't care that the cold rain soaked her thin dress, plastering it to her skin. She didn't care that her hair hung in wet ropes down her back. The rain washed over her, baptizing her with its blessing. The soil turned soft beneath her feet, drinking deeply, gratefully. The garden shivered with life, the leaves trembling, lifting, the earth sighing as though waking from a long, troubled sleep. She stood there in the downpour, turning slowly in the rain, arms spread wide as if to embrace the world itself, as if to gather every drop of precious water. She laughed, a sound of pure joy that startled her with its intensity. It was the first sound of happiness she had made in months, and it felt like breaking free from chains she hadn't known bound her. The storm lasted through the night and into the next day, a steady, soaking rain that filled the creek and puddled in low places. When it finally cleared, the world looked transformed. The dust had been washed away, revealing the true colors of earth and sky. The air smelled clean and fresh. In the days that followed, the garden began to change before Hannah's eyes. The corn straightened its stalks, its leaves unfurling and reaching upward. The beans climbed their poles again with renewed vigor, their vines twining and grasping. Flowers opened in the squash patch, yellow and white blossoms that hummed with visiting bees. The herbs, mint, thyme, and sage filled the air with a sweet, sharp fragrance that drifted through the open cabin door and made it smell like home once more. Hannah worked with renewed energy and hope. She pulled weeds that now came easily from the softened earth, gathered the first tender beans, and hummed softly while she worked, old songs her mother used to sing. The air was full of buzzing bees and bird song again. Butterflies danced among the flowers. The land, which had seemed dead and hostile, was alive and welcoming once more. Inside the cabin, Hannah's mother began to turn a corner. The fever broke finally, leaving her weak but clear minded. The color returned slowly to her cheeks, first pale pink, then healthier tones. She could sit up for short periods, and she smiled faintly when Hannah entered the room with a basket full of green shoots and blossoms, with news of the garden's resurrection. "You did it, my brave girl," Eleanor whispered, her voice still weak but warm. "You kept it alive." "We did it together, Mama," Hannah replied, though they both knew the truth of who had carried the burden. By late summer, the garden was rich with abundant life. Squash ripened under broad leaves, their skins turning deep green and gold. Beans hung heavy from the vines in thick clusters. Corn swayed tall and golden, the ears plump and full. It was more than they could eat, more than Hannah had dared hope for during those dark days of drought. One evening, as the sky blazed with sunset, all orange and purple and pink, Hannah gathered the first real harvest. She moved through the rows, her basket growing heavy with produce, a handful of tender beans, sprigs of fragrant herbs, 3 perfect squash, ears of sweet corn, and one beautiful, perfectly red tomato that had ripened on the vine her mother had planted with her own hands so many months ago. She carried the basket inside, her heart full and light, her step almost dancing. The cabin glowed with lamplight in the gathering dusk. She set the tomato beside her mother's bed, placing it carefully on a small wooden plate. Its bright color glowed softly in the lamplight, looking almost luminous. It was more than food, it was proof that hope, when tended with love and patience and stubborn determination, can take root even in the hardest soil. It was proof that children can be stronger than they know, that gardens can survive drought, that families can endure separation. Eleanor touched the tomato gently, tears filling her eyes. "It's perfect," she whispered. That night, as Hannah sat by the window in her usual spot, listening to the crickets hum their evening song and the soft wind move through the tall corn with a rustling like whispered secrets, she felt peace for the first time in many months. The stars were bright above the valley, scattered in their familiar patterns. A thin crescent moon hung low in the west. In the soft darkness, she knew with certainty that her father would return soon, and when he did, he would find not ruin and loss, but life and abundance. He would find his wife recovering, his daughter grown stronger, and his land blessed with harvest. 3 days later, as dawn broke over the grasslands, Hannah heard the distant sound of wagon wheels and saw a dust trail on the eastern road. Her father had come home. In the years to come, settlers who passed through that valley would speak of the Whitfield girl who kept a garden alive through dust and drought and sickness. They would tell the story around campfires and in settlement halls of her courage, her patience, her refusal to surrender to circumstance. They would point out the green patch of earth near the cabin, still thriving, still producing, a testament to what love and determination could accomplish on the frontier. And though time would eventually carry Hannah's story far from that valley, though she would grow and live and build a life of her own every spring, when new shoots broke through the ground in gardens across the West, her spirit would live again, quiet, steadfast, and blooming beneath the open frontier sky. For she had learned what the land teaches those brave enough to stay, that life persists, that hope endures, and that even the smallest hands can accomplish great things when the heart